Namaste, Jai Bharat. Let's talk today about the kind of social stratification that prevailed in the Vedic society. Now, the time of Vedic society, people tried to fix a chronology, but then in almost every cases, the attempt to fix a chronology for events that took place in Bharat had always been unrealistic. So let's not really bother much about when was the Vedic period. Logically speaking, I would like to sum up that logically the period of Vedas should have been the period of the river Saraswati, that is, when river Saraswati was flowing in full might. And that was a time when on either side of river Saraswati, the Vedic settlements came into existence and flourished in three stages. Normally we see them as in three stages, like the early Vedic period, the middle Vedic period, and the later Vedic period. The settlement near where I stay, Lothal, is a later Vedic period settlement, which was the port, which also had this water gate. So that's besides the question. Now, the structuring of society is very logical. I don't want to use the word scientific because many times the use of the term scientific becomes very, very reductionistic. Especially what you find in Marx. Marx uses the word scientific repeatedly. He talks about democracy scientific, socialism scientific, utopian scientific. He makes that kind of distinction. So this really makes an authentic concept of scientificity or being scientific very reductionistic. So I don't want to use the word in this context, at least. In this context especially, the structuring of a society is very systematically and logically done in the Vedic society. They have divided the society into four varnas. Now, varna is not jati or caste. Varna is essentially a quality concept. The Vedic society or Vedic people or the Sanskrit people or the Sanskritic people, they use quality concept profusely. They use mostly quality concepts, which is something like a connotative concepts and not denotative concepts. Connotative concepts are basically quality concepts. Denotative concepts are concepts that refers to some object in reality, in space and time, in the world. So we find them using connotative concepts in abundance, in plenty. So the four varnas they speak about are essentially quality concepts. See, we know them: the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. The Brahmana, the one who has given qualities, falls into the varna, or say roughly class of Brahman, class of this, and some others with a stipulated quality they fall into the Kshatriya class, and the third is the Vaishya class, and the fourth is the Shudra class. And they are class concepts, rather quality concepts. Given this quality, you are in this varna. Given this quality, you are in this varna. Given this quality, you are in this varna, and so on. Now, no varna is rigid since no quality is rigid. Qualities are supposed to be flexible. In a normal case, on a routine, the quality becomes better. On a regular existence and use, a quality becomes better. It improves and improves and improves. But then there are rare occasions where one person loses quality. So long as you hold that quality, you are in that varna. When you improve that quality, you go into higher varna, and when you lose the quality, you go into lower varna. This is a system. So if you have Brahmanical qualities, they are a Brahmana. For example, fundamentally a Brahmana is supposed to be a scholar, and whose knowledge or scholarship is not meant for himself, it's meant for the entire society. That's the role of a Brahmana in a society. And the Kshatriya, the soldier like thing, his Chhatraveer is meant for the whole society. And vice versa, the Vaishyas, who are great cultivators and traders. Look, it's not a matter of joke to be a trader. People think it is simple. If you make me sit in a shop, I'm sure in 1 month's time it will get closed. That is not my cup of tea. I shall not be able to do the trading activity. And cultivation, trading, that's another class. Then the third kind of people, the fourth kind of people, who are called the Shudras, are really helpers, because there are always cases that a person may not have any special quality in himself by virtue of his being. It's not necessary that he will not acquire it tomorrow. He can, or he may. But so long as he doesn't possess any specific quality, or so long as a specific quality does not manifest in an individual, he can be termed as a helper. That's a Shudra. So a helper can become something by acquisition of qualities and abilities, etc. So the Varna is extremely flexible concept. No, it's never a rigid concept. Later, of course, we find during a period of downward growth in the Vedic society, which has very, very many reasons, it gets rigidified. That as the Brahmana, of course, wants his son to be Brahman, etc., etc. So he will desperately try to make his son a Brahman, in spite of, irrespective of whether he possesses that given qualities or not. No, this must have happened in the later period, much later in the Vedic time, and that has caused the intervention of Buddha, Mahaviraswamy, etc. So this is how a society is structured. Now there are this, of course, again very interesting, which is not said and seen at many places. Now there's a concept of Arya and Anarya, distinction between Arya and Anarya. Again, Arya is a quality concept. The one with noble qualities belongs to noble qualities, typical qualities, specific qualities belong to the concept of Arya. And those who do not have that, they are not rule bound. They're sort of anarchic and doesn't obey any dharma, etc., etc. They're anaryas, and there are some categories in anaryas who are termed in the Vedic system as Daitya, Danava, etc., and sometimes Asura, sometimes Rakshasa. All these names are given to such people who are not Arya. Arya is the one who is essentially noble. Now these four Varnas in the Vedic society are meant for Aryas. The one is essentially refined. Arya also can mean a refined person. The one who is essentially refined, one who is noble. And to someone who is raw, unrefined, ignoble, they don't come under this category of four Varnas. And to refer to such people, there is an expression, the fifth one, the Panchamas, and they don't at all come under discussion. We are talking about a noble archetype structured society where somebody who doesn't belong to a system of noble existence is not discussed about. So this is how the Vedic society is structured. Now, interestingly, very interestingly, in the Greek thinking system, in the Greek philosophy, we have great minds like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. These three are indeed great minds. And Socrates, of course, did not write anything directly by himself. Plato wrote out what Socrates said, and of course maybe some others. So Plato, if you look at these Greek thinkers, most of them are also very politically interested. They are interested about ideal states. Even you find Pythagoras doing the same thing. They wanted to talk about an ideal rule, a good rule, etc., etc., etc. Like we have in Bharat, benevolent kings, Dharma Raja we call them, because the kings in Bharat were all mostly, in fact all of them, were highly educated, they were very scholarly people. They had the ministers were very scholarly, etc. So Plato envisages a situation of republic. He wrote that dialogue. It's called Republic. So in Republic, Plato stratifies society. He stratifies society on the basis of his theory of soul. He has a theory of soul, Plato. He says that soul has three parts: upper part, middle part, lower part. Then he says upper part is a part of reason, middle part is a part of spirit, and the lower part is a part of appetite. Now, in people, all the three parts of soul are not active in the same way, or their different parts are active in different way in different people. Now, there are people in whom the rational part, the topmost part, is more active, and the appetite and spirit and appetite part are dormant. And there are instances, there are cases where the spirit part is dominating and the rational and appetite part are dormant. And there are instances where the appetite part is dominant and other two parts are dormant. So the different parts of soul are active in different manner in different individuals. Now, there is a situation also, Plato says, that all the three parts are equally dormant and no part is really active. So, these four situations he presents. Of course, I always thought about this. He doesn't think about a situation which is a logical possibility, where all the three parts are equally active in somebody. Of course, he would have answered, if the question is put to Plato, he would have answered, when all the three parts are equally active, the topmost part's activity is counted more. Maybe he would have answered like that. This, of course, is my speculation. Now, then on the basis of his theory of soul, Plato envisages an ideal society. The ideal society, of course, he himself calls as Callipolis, and which, of course, his critics call it as utopia to mean an impossible situation. Of course, let's wait. Now, where the topmost part, the rational part, is more active, they become philosophers, and where the appetite part, the spirit part is more active, they become the soldiers, and the appetite part is more active, they become the traders and cultivators, etc. Now, where none of the parts are active, they become the slaves. So, Plato envisages a society which he believes to be an ideal state, ideal situation of a state, where the philosophers are kings on top, and the soldiers are defenders. Soldiers, of course, we know what a soldier how a soldier functions. And then the traders and cultivators, where the appetite is more active. Then the great helpers, who are good, who are noble, but then they are unable to do anything of themselves, but they are good helpers. See, to be a helper, one also be sensible. An idiot can't be a helper at all. So one has to be sensible. So Plato talks about an ideal state, which he calls as Callipolis, and he says that the rulers should be philosophers because they are the most knowledgeable people. And of course, those people in whom the spirit part is more active, they should be the soldiers because they'll be great fighters. And of course, the traders, where the appetite part is active, and where nothing is active, they are good people, but then can only help others, can't do anything individually. So this is the ideal situation of an ideal state in Plato's understanding, which he expressed through his dialogue called as the Republic. Fine. Now, people thought, the critics of Plato, of course, Plato is studied 2000 years after his passing away. Much later, all this Greek philosophy were studied much thousands, 2000 years later. Actually, seriously, somebody has worked. Before that, it was people didn't know, they had nothing to do with philosophy until Descartes. Even in the medieval dark period, Augustine, Aquinas, and Anselm during their period. These three, of course, were interested in knowing things, but then they were priests, they were padres, theologians fundamentally, and later beatified to be saints. We know that. Now, so this is the situation, and those people, those who read it or heard it, thought that this situation is not really possible. It's impossible to have a society like that. They, without ever thinking or going into the merit of what Plato had said, they called it as utopia to mean impossible. And from there, in English language, this utopia started standing for anachronism or impossibility or something very, very imaginary, etc., etc. But look at the Platonic structure of society in Republic and the Vedic structure of society in the Vedic society. Don't you think they are strikingly similar? Naturally, there's nothing unusual for somebody who tries to understand things. It's normal, it's natural. They're strikingly similar. That such similarity can read not only in the Greek thoughts, but also in many ancient civilizations, be it the Aztecs, be it the Mayas, and be it the Egyptians and the Sumerians and the Babylonians. Look at all ancient civilizations. People did not, the scholarship had no walls, at least in those days. Today, I think somebody, at least at some places, the scholarships are having walls. But those days, that was not the case. Scholarship had no walls. Scholars used to go in search of knowledge to far-flung places, and they used to obtain knowledge. There was no restriction in giving knowledge to a seeker. Any teacher would have taught him whatever he knows, and the people take it, and the real scholars work upon it further and extend it further. This is how the situation should have been, or should be. But that had been the case in the ancient world. So you see that there's nothing unusual. Plato's the Veda-Upanishadic knowledge tradition has its influence on all world civilizations. And incidentally, let me say that period. There's a period in Bharat that something like near 7 lakhs, exact number I don't remember, near 7 lakhs of universities existed throughout the length and breadth of this nation, Bharat. We used to call universities as Gurukulas. And there were small Gurukulas, large Gurukulas like Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikramashila, etc., etc. Big Gurukulas, small Gurukulas. But small Gurukulas were, in all likelihood, context specific. They were highly specialized areas where only specialized things must have been discussed. So for super specialization, hyper specialization, people used to go to the smaller Gurukulas. So this many universities, and people from all over the world used to come to Bharat, learn and go back. And they, being scholars, who worked upon what they have learned, extended it. Sometimes they acknowledged, sometimes it was not necessary. They spoke about knowledge. They worked upon the knowledge, spread the knowledge, and gave to others. You look at our texts written in Bharat. Many texts, there's no mention about who wrote it. So many of our scholars were not bothered to write their own name, that it's written by me. That kind of things did not exist. They were not bothered of their own self. Of course, the selflessness in ancient acharyas of Bharat is unimaginably pure. So people used to come here, learn things, and go away to their respective society. And if you look at all the world civilizations, I'm not naming them, pick up any, you would somehow find either implicit or sometimes explicit mark of Bharatiya, the Veda-Upanishadic knowledge tradition, in their knowledge tradition, either directly or indirectly. Now, one logical reflection I would like to present is that you look at the world civilizations and you find They are specialized in areas of something, some area. But you don't find a single civilization except the one in Bharat who had touched upon all spheres and aspects of knowledge. All spheres and aspects of knowledge. Which is not the case with all other world civilization. They are specialists in some area. I don't have to name. You can look at things for yourself. So, but they are in some area they are good. Some area they have done tremendous work, and not in all areas. But on the other hand, you look at Bharat, we have knowledge tradition from, if I rhetorically say, Kama Sutra to Advaita Vedanta. We have knowledge tradition from, I am speaking rhetorically again, from Kama Sutra to Advaita Vedanta, the unqualified monism. So there is no area or point of knowledge which is not looked into or touched by the Bharatiya scholars in the past. So the land was, with nearly 7 lakhs of universities, the land was the place for complete knowledge. That is complete knowledge in the sense, knowledge regarding everything thinkable, conceivable. But of course, complete knowledge doesn't mean that there's an end in knowledge. They have kept everything as open-ended, that there's nothing as end in knowledge, nothing as final knowledge, nothing as this is it, beyond this there's nothing. They were not, they were really smart enough not to put an end to any knowledge tradition, any knowledge aspiration. Tomorrow it can be different, they knew it. Given different space and time, things would change, they knew it. And they allowed such changes and welcomed such changes, and like Rigveda itself says, Ano Bhadra, Kritavo Yanthu Vishwadha, means let noble thoughts come from any corner, anywhere, by anyone, doesn't make any difference, so long as it is knowledge. And that is the spirit of Bharatiya knowledge tradition, the Veda-Upanishadic knowledge tradition. So there is nothing unusual that Plato's Republic is bearing influence of the Vedic Varnashrama Dharma. It's only natural. Not only that, look at the Greek Hellenistic religion. And I don't think there is any Hellenist left today. They all, the Hellenism has, I think, it's over. I don't know if anyone is practicing Hellenism in Greece, but then that's over. Hellenism does not exist as far as I know. Look at the great Hellenistic religion of Greece, and if you look at the common Hindu religion minus the philosophy, of course minus the philosophy. The moment you put in philosophy, there is no question of God. There is no one God, there is one reality. These two are two different things. So minus the philosophy, look at the practical Hindu dharma. Dharma is different from religion. Look at the practical Hindu dharma and look at the Hellenistic religion and look at the deities there in Greece and here in Bharat. You will find striking similarities. Now you have similarly striking similarities in philosophies all over the world, between many aspects in Bharat. So, Plato's Republic and the influence of Varnashrama Dharma in Plato's Republic is nothing unusual. It is a common thing for any scholar that you learn things from anybody who can teach you. It doesn't matter from where he is. That's what the Rigveda says. It doesn't matter from where and by whom. It's something which you can learn. And that used to be the attitude of scholars in the past. Now, when you say the ashramas, there is a confusion. There can be a confusion. It's not really there, but there is a possibility. The 4 varnas of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and also the 5th one I told you, they don't come into this fold. So it is 4 only, Varnashrama. There, the 4 varnas of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra fall into the Varnashrama Dharma. It's a kind of Dharma. Varnashrama Dharma. And there are another 4 ashramas in human life. That's a different level. 2 are 2 different things. But the name, ashrama here, and that is Varnashrama. There's a possibility that some might confuse. So I am telling this too. See, functionally, a human life, is divided into four ashramas. Four ashramas. That is, assuming that man's lifespan is 100 years. The life is divided into four ashramas consisting of 25 years old, 25 years, 25 years, like that. So the first 25 years is the first ashrama in human life. That's also a very structured manner, human existence. Your first 25 years, just imagine in our own lives, the first 25 years, in our cases it is much more than 25 years, the first 25 years is spent for acquisition of knowledge of all kinds. So that is a time when we spend to learn, practice, etc. So the first ashrama in human life is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, of course, is translated in English as celibacy, but that's an inappropriate translation. Celibate is abstinence from sex. Brahmacharya is from within. That constitutes the thinking of a man. So that period, the first 25 years, the person spends his time in with Gurukula, that's a university, or with the teacher, guru, or somewhere in acquiring knowledge, any kinds of knowledge. Maybe he is an artisan, he acquires that. Maybe he goes for philosophical knowledge, whatever. So first 25 years is spent for acquisition of abilities. You try to know things, you gather information. Of course, gather information and then try to convert it into knowledge. Information has to become knowledge when information affects you. That is Gautama Maharshi's statement. Information should affect a person, affect the knower in such a manner that he is getting refined, purified, etc. So, the first ashrama is that, brahmacharya. Then after 25 years of your existence, after learning things, you become a grihastha. Graha means house. He becomes a grihastha, where he gets married and lives normally with families like normal men, with all kinds of normal activities. He need not to go for anything else. He just lives a normal life as he may please, as he may like. So that is the second ashrama. Then the third ashrama is called Vanaprastha. So by the time the man is 25 plus 25, 50 years old. So from 50 to 75, this is very interesting, instructive and important stage. The third ashrama in life. See, from 50 to 75 years of age, you should start practicing detachment. Right at the mind. From the mind, you start practicing detachment, and by the age of 75, you should have practiced complete detachment from everything, from this world itself. So this 25 years of between 50 to 75 is for you to become completely detached. 25 years time is given to you to practice full detachment. And that third stage is called Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha. So, Brahmacharya ashrama, Grihastha ashrama, Vanaprastha ashrama, and after 75 years of age, you have to go for tapasya. Don't stay in the house anymore. Don't stay in the society anymore. You have already practiced detachment in last 25 years, and nothing will make any difference to you whether you have it or you don't have it. It makes no difference to you. Then you go for tapasya. Tapasya, of course, we understand in the Hindu concept or the Bharatiya concept for Jains, Buddhists, the Sikhs and Hindus. It's all alike. You go for tapasya. You go to Aranya, so forests or anywhere of your choice, and then do tapasya. And tapasya, I don't want to translate it into English as meditation. That's why I was not translating till now. Say there's no other way. Meditation, you go for tapasya. Transcendental meditation, or whatever you may call in the modern times. So then you may live up to 85 years, sometimes 95 years, sometimes even beyond. We don't know. But then you are gone. You don't have to continue in the house as a burden to. This is really is a case as a burden to your offsprings. They are in grihastha period. So this is a second kind of ashrama, the which they talk about 4 ashramas in life: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and tapasya. So that's a different kind of ashrama qualification. We are talking about the varna ashrama. That is your abilities and qualities. You belong to a particular class by virtue of your abilities and capacities into either Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. Or of course the Atharmis, we don't count them in. They are Daitya, Danava, etc. we don't count them in this. They are Anaryas. Arya is the one who is supposed to have given qualities. Refined one, Arya is essentially refined one. Rigveda says Praja Arya Jyotiragra, which means somebody who is searching for light and who is guided by light, Jyoti, is Arya. Now that is very rhetoric again. Light should be anything that is noble and positive. Here, not only knowledge, anything that is positive and knowledge. So this is how the Vedic Varnashrama Dharma is reflected in Plato's Republic. As the Vedic Hinduism, so the Hindu Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, as it is reflected in the Hellenistic tradition of Greece. So this kind of things are there. Nobody is living in isolation in this world. People knew one another. They learned and they learned from one another. They taught to one another. This is no matter from where and who. Whosoever comes, he also takes knowledge and gives knowledge. The knowledge is never a one-way affair. Suppose a Greek scholar comes to Bharat to learn, and definitely he will improve upon it and teach somebody here, and then only he goes back. So it's always a kind of knowledge, is always a kind of give and take. Now I have guided quite a few people for PhD, and it is always the case that I am not teaching them. I learn from them, and we learn together. The great Upanishadic mantra is Sahana Bhavadu Sahana Punaktu. You be together. Sahaviryam Karavavahe. You then Sahaviryam Karavavahe, then Tejasvana Avadidamastu. You become glorified yourself through continuous interaction with one another. We learn together, we think together, we act together, and we become Tejasvis, bright together. So that is the Bharatiya knowledge tradition. And you have a lot of examples in this world where the Veda knowledge tradition has both direct and indirect influence on other knowledge traditions of the world. This is nothing unusual, this is only normal. Only thing, we don't discover them, we are maybe not conscious about them, we don't know them, that's our problem. But then things did exist and they do exist. Let me conclude today, and Namaste, Jai Bharat, Jai Shri Ram.